This is rock bottom, man.
When the chips are down. And you go up from here, I guess. Maybe there's something good out of this. No oh.
Cycle racing is, without doubt in my mind, the hardest sport in the world. If you can't hurt yourself beyond belief, you'll never succeed.
I mean, my kids, I don't want them to be cyclists because I know it's coming. It's dangerous, it's hectic, it's fighting. The sport is cruel.
There's crashes, there's injuries, there's like a lot of pain and suffering involved.
It sounds very romantic to travel the world riding just bike races, but it isn't romantic at all.
The highs are high, but the lows are low.
On the contrary, just experiences that just put you on these crazy highs.
You know, it's not a sport for nice guys. Nice guys don't get very far in the sport.
There's a big gap between where cycling is in Africa and where world-class cycling is currently at in Europe. It's technique, it's weather, it's conditions, it's traditions, it's all kinds of things. There are many, many challenges that African cyclists and African teams face to compete in what is essentially Eurocentric sport. Cycling is very unforgiving. Ultimately, it comes down to, can you ride your bike fast or not? We just want to basically be able to put everyone on the start line on an equal footing and let the talent race itself out. And unfortunately, that means every rider who wants to make it on the world stage has to come to Europe.
Doug is someone who sets goals and dreams. There have been so many times when people have said no to him and he said, I'll try another angle. You can put your faith in him. If he says he'll do something, he'll do it. When he got selected for the Atlanta Olympic Games, just opened his eyes to see that, you know, we can hold our own. We're a small country, but we can come and compete at this level.
It is a fitting tribute to the first black South African to stand on the podium as Olympic champion. A fitting tribute to a man and a nation who have overcome so much.
Realizing that Africa's produced the best endurance runners, and then, like, why not cyclists? So that's, I guess, where the dream was born, to do something that had never been done before with a South African registered African team to go to the Tour de France.
So it'll be interesting to see if they can get maybe...
In the beginning, I thought, sure, Doug, that's a very big dream.
10 years ago, Doug used to speak to me about the team he's going to one day bring to the Tour de France, and we thought, yeah, right, Doug, yeah. Keep it going, mate.
I thought Doug was crazy, and I thought that, well, that's got no chance and no chance of ever succeeding.
Finding international riders was really complicated. You know, today the rider agents call you and they come and see you. In those days, we were nobody. We called them and went to their offices, and they literally closed their doors. You know, people were saying, where are you from? No, South Africa. Like, where is that? Africa, south, at the bottom, that's where we're from. And they're like, why would we want to, you know, bring riders to your team? And they just didn't believe that we'd pay salaries, that we'd even exist. You know, some of those riders that joined our team, like a Gerald Cherlik from Germany, you know, the talk in the peloton was like, you know, that's the end of your career, and, you know, good luck.
Looking at the results is one thing, but to see the story behind is the other things. There is this whole story behind the team which is unique and which makes the team different, and that's a big motivation. The Qhubeka bike handover and stuff like this, I think this is really important. We're trying to change lives of people and make lives of these people better, so that's definitely something you should be proud of.
We are a team that races to mobilize people on bicycles. That's what drives us. We've got great coaches, great staff, and a great purpose that is there to mobilize people on bikes, and that's what gets us up every day. It makes us work hard.
There were some months where we took money out of our bond to pay salaries, but he kept the dream. He's going to get to the Tour. And yeah, he managed.
It's always difficult when you come as a new team into that arena, because guys, the World Tour teams feel like we belong here, and then you guys are just the add-ons. And they've got a different mentality. They're like, I want to show these guys that I belong here.
Today we do history. 3 times hip hip hooray! Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray!
We're all a little nervous and excited at the same time.
A year ago, guys, we would never have thought that we would be here at a World Tour race. So I just want to wish you guys all the best today, and whatever happens will happen. Hopefully this is the start of many big things to come. But I mean, it's an incredible feeling for me, and I think for all of you as well to be here. And so yeah, let's just go forwards and take African cycling and this team to the next level, and really enjoy the race today, and then obviously big things to come into the future.
Thanks,
guys. Good luck.
Okay, thank you.
We wanted to showcase what this team is about, and it was about the African dream. Songezo Jim was one of the better riders, in the South African racing circuit, and then when we registered the team, it was great to have him on board as into the World Tour and to go into the world of cycling and European racing, and he was that guy that put his hand up and stood tall and said, look, give me the chance and I'll show you that I can add a huge amount of value. So it was really significant to him and significant to the journey of this team. It was our first major World Tour race, so it was a pretty special moment, and it was a privilege just to be there. It was raining, and it was one of those European springs that were just ugly, and then 295 kilometers of hell awaited the team.
First monument of the season, and one that's been heavily interrupted by the weather so far this afternoon. Well, Gerald Ciolek is a sprinter by trade. He's with the relatively unknown MTN-Qhubeka team.
Keep your eyes on Gerald Ciolek. He will be very, very dangerous for the win here.
And here comes the big dig. Here comes Gerald Ciolek of the MTN-Qhubeka team.
It's going to be Ciolek. I can't believe it. Ciolek's going to get through. Sagan kicks back. Oh, Ciolek takes it.
Goes and wins the longest, hardest one-day classic in the world in the worst weather conditions that the race had ever seen.
No doubt about who got the win, and that was Gerald Ciolek of the MTN-Qhubeka team, already making a wonderful, wonderful impression, not just for German cycling, but also for African cycling, with the arrival onto the big stage of the MTN-Qhubeka team.
There's some teams that take 5 or 6 years in their growth before they win a monument. We did it in 3 months.
And what a story. What a story.
It was just the coming together of so many amazing things. And it just showed that we needed international riders, we needed experience. This is not a 100% African team. We needed to have those international riders to fast track us to success and to bring us on quickly. And the experience and the amount that Songezo learned that day in his support of Ciolek. But Africa had absolutely arrived in cycling. We only had sponsorship till the end of 2015, so we needed to get into a Grand Tour, because you don't ride the Tour de France as your first race. We definitely thought we'd be in the 2014 Giro d'Italia. We won Milan-San Remo. That's a race that's organised by them. And they snubbed us. They didn't invite us. And we were running out of time. You've got to still believe in the dream, and sometimes you don't believe in it anymore. And in my position, to keep people connected and believing in themselves, even when times are really tough, is a challenge. And then obviously selling that on to the partners to say that, we are moving forwards and we've got our shit together. The lobbying was hectic, and it was super tiring, because we were based out of South Africa. Other teams that were lobbying against us, they were in Europe. And so every day that we weren't there, or I wasn't there, I knew there were other people knocking on the same doors. Every day we had to go out there and fight for it. And we brought riders in from a continent that didn't exist in the sport before. So yeah, I never slept that much that year. And then eventually the Vuelta a España in 2014, gave us the opportunity to ride their race. So that was a critical moment.
What are the ambitions of the MTN-Qhubeka team here?
I think just to get the word Qhubeka repeated as much as possible.
It was our first Grand Tour. It will stay with us forever. 21 days, 3,500 kilometers, back to back through the craziest weather, the hardest conditions. Then you just start to think like, wow, this is hectic. So 2015 Giro d'Italia announcement, when they got in touch with us in January, they usually announce their teams a week before the Tour de France, and so we got a notification to say, that these are the wildcard teams that have been selected and have made the grade to ride the 2015 Giro d'Italia. That was a tough moment, actually, because I knew if we went, we would not get invited to the 2015 Tour de France, because you often don't get 2 Grand Tours, and we hadn't heard from the Tour de France yet. And we just decided to take a chance and turn it down. And no second division team turns down an invitation to a Grand Tour. But we knew, we were in our final year of sponsorship. We had to get into the Tour de France. It was our dream, it was our goal, it was the strategy from the beginning, which never changed. And so we took a massive risk. We would risk everything to get to the Tour.
In 101 previous editions of the Tour de France, there'd never been an African team on the start line. For the 102nd race, that all changed.
It was a fantastic moment being there and being a part of it, but ultimately we wanted to do significant things and show that we deserved to be there. So the door was open, and we had to keep it open.
Now, Tekla-Haymanot, he's 26 years of age. He's an Eritrean.
Daniel Tekla-Haymanot breaks. They've realised what is happening. It's 1 point, and we have our first African king of the mountains of the Tour de France. Huge moment for him. Sometimes you see dreams do come true in the Tour de France.
We had such energy and such motivation and momentum that was going through the team. The amount of fans and Africans that came from all over Europe to come and see the team because it was all over the news and doing well. The Tour de France had never seen a fan base like that before. And I think it showed, that Africa needs to be in cycling. For us as a team, we wanted to be opportunistic. We wanted to focus on our riders and our strengths. The color of Mandela Day is orange. It's the color of harmony. And so we did some unique things that day, changed the helmets, changed certain things to orange to represent that day and to give our riders a little bit of motivation. And I spoke to the riders in the bus talking about the impact that this has and a bit about Mandela. And when I walked off that bus, I said to the media that I wouldn't want to race against this team today.
1 kilometre to go to the summit.
Steve Cummings was our best rider in terms of the terrain and his qualities, and so the whole team committed to him.
Steve Cummings is riding back up into 3rd position.
Tense moments here for 2 Frenchmen. They've now gone down this small section, and Steve Cummings has joined him, and he's going to jump them as he goes straight by. This will be an incredible result for MTN-Qhubeka as they remember Nelson Mandela today.
Well, I can't believe this, Phil. I was talking to Doug Ryder, the principal of MTN-Qhubeka this morning, said the man who's going to go for the breakaway is Steve Cummings.
Of course, there was just 3 of them left at in the final. And he was super smart by going through the corners better than anybody else and understanding his competition.
Completely dropped it, wouldn't be tail. And now Bardet is going to try and take
it's magic. I mean, it's magic to win anyway, but when you've strategized and planned it with that individual, then you just think, wow, that's a big dream that just came true and anything is possible.
And Steve Cummings has won the day for MTN-Qhubeka on the day they celebrate their great icon, Nelson Mandela.
I don't believe it!
It was absolutely unbelievable. We had just no pressure, raced with such freedom, and it showed.
I tell you what, Phil, you cannot write fairy tales like that. He came up at the very last moment to get onto the back, and that was a fantastic...
After the Tour de France, I received 2 phone calls. One initially and asking me if I was free to meet with Mark Cavendish. It was an incredible moment to have one of the best riders in the world want to meet you when literally 3 years before that we didn't really exist in cycling. And then 24 hours later, a reporter phoned me and asking me if I had a comment on the decision that had been made. And I was like, well, what decision? And he said that MTN, our current sponsor, was not going to renew their agreement with us going forwards. Everything comes to an end, but it's just the way in which it was done. We had such success and we did something that had never been done before. And that was a real low moment.
I don't have a team next year at this point. After such a big build-up, the most amazing time, and dream come true, and then to nothing. 2 days after, literally 2 days after the Tour de France.
I phoned Mark Cavendish and I said to Mark, look, thanks for showing an interest in the team, but at this point in time, we don't have a sponsor for next year, and I would stay where you are. And his response was, Doug, I believe in this team. I believe in you. I've already told my team that I'm not going to be a part of them next year, so I'm with you. I'm sure you'll find a way. So then I was like, oh, like what now?
I think the reality of running a professional cycling team is huge. And the responsibility is massive as well.
To be honest, I don't think we as a company realized what a crazy dream it was at the time. We might not have gone for it, to be honest. It's only when you start to get into it and you start to understand more and more about the sport, how competitive it is, how ruthless it is, how good these cyclists are, and how difficult it is to actually compete at this level as consistently as you need to compete. And only someone, I suppose, who had almost the audacity, the stubbornness of Doug, would actually believe in the dream in the first place and then actually go and deliver on it. So I don't think we knew what we were getting ourselves into.
They'd given us the figures on how many people watch it. Everything stacked up, and from that point of view, it seemed to make sense. But bearing in mind that we never ever wanted to be the primary sponsor, and Doug's quite a good salesman.
So the 2016 Tour de France, we went with a strategy of wanting to win stages. So it kind of was all in for that. Went so many flat stages that year. And of course, a flat stage to Utah Beach, day one. We'd never worn a yellow jersey in the Tour de France before. And this was our chance with one of the best sprinters in the world.
So prediction for today?
An absolutely historical, fantastic day for the team.
Clear blue skies, getting the race underway.
Phil Kittel is in a very good position at the moment. Dimension data is there. Cavendish is there, about 5 men down. And that's
Doug had said to me that you know, Cavendish has got his wife and his kids here, and there's a special reason.
Or is it as they close in on the line? He's still coming up towards the line. It looks to me as though this is Cavendish. Here's the happiness of the finish, though.
Mark, please.
That is an exceptional ride by Mark Cavendish.
Well, he has dreamed about this, Phil, for so many years.
It just came together, and Mark won and wearing the yellow jersey. His first yellow jersey in the Tour de France in 10 starts.
Everything right on the day.
We'll take a look
Sans surprise, eh bien, c'est Mark Cavendish qui s'empare bien sûr de ce maillot jaune dans le Yellow Jersey sur ses épaules. Regardez s'il est heureux. Il n'avait jamais porté ce maillot, il le porte aujourd'hui. Il est heureux.
We raced that Tour de France like it was one day old. And we brought Bernie Eisel, Mark Renshaw, so his lieutenants that he'd raced with and been so successful with in the past back together. You know, people were interested about that in the media and in the world of cycling, saying, you know, that they were done, has-beens, and, you know, maybe not so successful anymore. And boy, did that 2016 Tour de France prove that wrong.
As Cavendish is going, he's got the perfect shot at gold here. Cavendish is racing to the victory. With Kittel, can't get on turn here. It's going to be Cavendish all the way to the line. Or is it? Oh, he's come on to the line. Can you believe that? He has got his third stage win in this opening week of the Tour de France. The Manx missing.
And then Steve won, you know, on a day that we'd planned for him too, and it just, everything was falling into place.
Steve Cummings shakes his head. He's given yet another victory to the African team of Dimension Data, and it is their fourth win in 7 days.
Yeah, I think they have to fly some emergency champagne. We run out of champagne, so they're going to have to send some more now.
For us to win 5 stages in that Tour de France, being the most winning team in your second year, is incredible. It was like the new dawn. It was like the sun just came up and it was never going to set. We raised so much interest for our purpose, the Qhubeka charity. It just was, you know, it just strengthened our message actually, and got people to understand it around the world at a larger scale. It had a huge impact on us as a team, on African cycling, and ultimately on why we race.
When it's only a story about an individual, it's quickly forgotten. But I think that when that individual is able to connect to something higher and greater, then I think that leaves a lasting impact that is the definition of greatness.
Every year at our team building training camp, we go and sit in a community and we tell them that this is the community that you're impacting.
Imagine walking for 4 hours a day just to get an education. So what the bike does is it cuts that 4 hours commute to 1 hour. So everything starts with education. So if you can get people educated, then people get a job and then they can help themselves. We give children back their childhood. We give them time to play, we give them time to be happy, and we give them an education. So thank you very much. Deeply appreciated.
If you're in Belgium on cobblestones, bad weather, crosswind, you know, it's raining, it's 5 degrees, do you think you can't hang on anymore? No, there's an extra reason why I have to hang on. I do believe that gives you extra 2%, which might make a difference of winning and losing.
Qhubeka is about something greater. It's about hope. That inspires me. Like these people in these communities and what Qhubeka is doing for them, like that inspires me throughout the season.
Mark had an interesting brand during his career where he had kind of like a bad boy image. And then, you know, people looked at him now racing for our team and being a part of our team that, wow, this guy has got a heart, you know, the size of his legs.
You know, a bicycle we take for granted. It's our tool. It's like a pen for a writer. But it can be so much more. It can change a life. It's pretty special. If we can do just a little small part to help that, then it really helps us. It really gives us something bigger than ourselves to ride for.
This is why we race so hard around the world and why we travel 270 odd days, and in the worst weather conditions and the hardest races. I mean, we do it for this, so we can come back here and we can see that all the hardships and all the tough times that we face, the crashes, the incidents, and you come here and you see how happy you can make somebody else. It's the best day of the year.
I think greatness has to include an aspect of connecting to a higher purpose. Our team has a tradition of victory saluting with the hand open for the 5-finger salute to Qhubeka, exposing the logo of Qhubeka, and I think that points to that higher purpose.
So I think that's the start for many children, and they see this. The bike can open up a door for them. I think, sure, they see Africa's team riding, they see the Qhubeka sign on the jersey, and they probably start to associate themselves with a bit like that. And who knows? That's where you start seeing the potential getting unlocked.
With Mark Cavendish going to 30 stage wins in the Tour de France, and Louis Meintjes rejoining us as a rider that had just gone twice top 10 in the Tour de France. Our strategy going forwards for the next 3 years was, could we take Mark Cavendish to be the most winning rider in the Tour de France of all time, and could we take an African rider onto the top step or onto the podium in the final general classification of a Grand Tour.
The difficulty is here, you have to repeat it over and over. Like you have a professional bike race, you have to win. And this is where it becomes really, really difficult, and where, that dream fades away a little bit.
Cycling is a really, really, really tough sport where so many things can go wrong, illnesses and injuries.
Demar is coming, so too is Greipel. Cavendish goes into the barriers. Demar fights on. And that was a heavy bump and ride with the tarmac for Mark Cavendish.
Well, he hit that heavy. Fingers really crossed heavy. He is okay.
When Mark left the team, I sat on the team bus and, I said to the riders, why are we here? We all trained so hard to be here, to do something really significant. We've got such a strong purpose to ride for. 3 days after that crash, Edvald Boasson-Hagen went second, and that just brought the team back together. And we were 5 times on the podium, and then we ultimately won on stage 19.
He is back, Eddie the Boss! He's such a legend.
It's a special team because it's a race for something else than just a podium. We also ride for Qhubeka. It is really inspiring to see the people that we helped, and it gives meaning for riding as well.
Let's just look at this. This is where things start to get very nice. Essentially 3 arrowheads, so you can just see a Bordeaux Hansgrohe.
There's several riders down behind, and it's going to take out anybody who's in a bad position. Oh, and it's Mark Cavendish. It's Mark Cavendish down at the back. Mark Cavendish there. Oh no. God. Oh no.
That's dear.
And that is something we do not need to see.
This is our worst season we've ever had. Ever. In 10 years, this is our worst season. We've only won 5 races this year. By this time last year, we'd won 25. So yeah, we've really, at the moment, we're a sinking ship.
So it's moving into plan B, or to the next step. Every organisation goes through it, eh?
Well, I'm dying at the moment.
It goes there, and then it works its way out again. It has its great moment, it goes down, and then it sustains itself.
Running a World Tour team is not a cheap exercise, and it's not a walk in the park. Yeah, you have to provide the return of investment to your sponsor. So you need big name riders or riders that are going to succeed the whole time to bring that kind of coverage.
You know, our dreams were big and we believed in people, and sometimes things didn't materialize, you know. You know, people change and goals change.
Success came early and they got a lot of wins, but I think the personalities took over, quite frankly. I think some of the riders thought they were bigger than the team, and they allowed that to happen.
Going into the 2018 Tour de France, which was a really tough Tour de France, all in with you know, with Mark Cavendish, where we left riders at home like Steve Cummings to go in 100% committed without falter on one strategy.
Obviously, I base every season around being good at July, and I think I'm in my best form of the year, and then I'm lucky that I have a strong team with Team Dimension Data to come to the Tour de France and try and get some result.
We were trying to step it up a gear and go to the next level. Dimension Data had signed on for 3 years, you know, to believe in that project, the Grand Tour project, and massive dreams. But we were a team that realised dreams.
And one of the big stories of the day, Mark Cavendish, along with Marcel Kittel and Mark Renshaw, outside the time limit. But Cavendish, so brave, determined to finish the stage.
Just said that Kev, no, couldn't go anymore. Yeah.
Would you call this rock bottom?
Yeah. I think so. And you go up from here.
The day that had defined us as a team and brought us into the world of cycling and into the Tour de France, and with such success, you know, 3 years earlier, you know, was a day that defined that year's tour for us in a completely opposite way. It was a pretty low point actually, and it was like just everything had come caving in. You know, everybody talks about how I lived my dream and I was a cyclist and now I run a professional cycling team. You know, what more could you want? But with the pressures of, you know, event organizers and sponsors and the World Tour rankings, you know, you fight to survive and fight to stay relevant. And, you know, we try to make the best decisions that we could during those times to try and stay, you know, ahead of the game. But absolutely, there were times when when I would sit up at night thinking, you know, could we have, if we'd done this differently, would we be further along on the journey?
In reality, is a sponsor paying you 15 million euros for that story over and over and over? Or is it, you know, sooner or later, the moment they had to say, yeah, but we expect you to be in the top 10 in the Tour de France. We expect you to be in podium at the one-day classics. And that, I think, is the difficult part here. And I think the outside expectations are the biggest threat for that dream.
But yeah, I mean, it became a finger-pointing thing, which actually did kind of, you know, hurt the culture, hurt the team.
I think Doug was trying to get the best out of the riders. He was cajoling them on one side. He was fighting with the team directors on the other side. He had all kinds of pressures in terms of sponsors coming and going, Deloitte's pulling out, etc., and raising, trying to get funds for the next year before us. And the success that it had in previous years was no longer there. And they had to start thinking differently. The tension you could feel in amongst the riders who desperately wanted to do well, but struggled.
Well, you know, at the end of the day, the riders on the bike and they suffer the most, and the supporting crew, of course, we're emotional with them and we all hope for something because it changes their lives. And you just hope so much and you try to deliver what they need to achieve then their goal.
That's cycling. That's cycling. It's when it goes good, you must ride the wave, and when it doesn't, you have to pick yourself up every day.
it's a tough game. And you have lots of different elements that doesn't make it simple, it makes it very challenging. But I think whenever there's a challenge, Doug will rise to it, but it comes at a lot of sacrifice. It's hard. We get WhatsApps from our kids saying, "Don't worry, Dad, you'll get a stage win. You know how hard it is." So even they know what it means to be successful. Yeah, he doesn't want to fail. Most of us don't. So he is hard on himself if something didn't go right. He will, he'll look to better it or improve it. Even when the chips are down, he'll still say, "I'm not giving up." I think it's hard to find people like that these days.
When you work that hard, you deserve success, but that's not how the world thinks. Cycle racing uses the grandstands of the villages and the playing fields of the mountains. This is an open sport and it's a tough sport. There's no easy way of winning a bike race.
When things weren't coming together, and I had to really, have a come back to reality moment about why we created this team and what we want to still achieve.
And I've just learned that if you just trust in the process, if you keep your head up, if you don't quit, basically, eventually things turn around. It's been reinforced so many times, like just getting to a real low point and pushing through it.
Coming into the final Grand Tour of 2018, we've had a real tough year, and then going into the Vuelta a España with a team of riders that were, so wanting to rescue our season and pulling it together.
Stelnov and King, they are going to cat and mouse no matter what.
He's waited a long time for this. Now he's gone out to grab it for himself. King reigns supreme.
King there, and the smile says it all. And look at the team. Don't you love that? It's a team effort. The Swan Ewes, they've had a tough season as well.
In the grand scheme of things, a victory in a bike race is nothing compared to the big difference that we can make down there through the team. So I'm just incredibly grateful for the opportunity to represent such an incredible charity.
When the riders feel it and they believe, that's why they're here, because it has substance and it has a purpose. It's just bringing it back to the why, why are we here? And that was beautiful. And then he goes and backs it up 5 days later and wins again in the most calculated, brilliant way of racing. Everybody starts to believe again. The bus drivers believe again. The coaches believe that what they're doing is not far off, and and it just unites and connects the team again. It was about why we exist, who we exist for, and then the riders believe in themselves again.
In these times, everybody's aiming for new records, everybody's aiming for more. But don't forget the history. Don't forget where he came from. Got beaten up a few times already, but never gave up. Whatever critics you get, whatever pressure you get, nobody can take away from what has been done over the last, 2 decades.
I think it's always nice having someone you can look up to. Songezo Jim, we've been teammates, and when he signed with the team, and I thought to myself, wow, okay, he's there, so I can get there as well one day. My dream was basically to ride for the team, it was this youngster with quite a lot of dreams, and there was a lot of African guys in the team, a lot of Eritreans, a lot of Ethiopians as well, and I thought to myself, wow, I'd like to ride for that team. And that's what's happening now. My biggest highlight while I'm with the team was winning my first King of the Mountains in Tour Down Under. It was my first race as a World Tour rider, so I'll never forget that one.
King of the Mountains from Team Dimension Data, Nick Glandini.
This team is doing something for a whole continent. It's
important for the continent to have a World Tour team that's trying to look after the interests of African cycling and promote and give the opportunity to African cyclists.
Our World Tour team is no longer a purely African team, but that doesn't mean that we've given up our African identity. In many ways, I see our continental team as continuing that struggle. Not about buying the best players, you actually need to develop them, because that's part of your culture as an organization. We were never meant to do this just for our team. We were always trying to do this for sport in general.
We have to confront whatever comes at us. Yeah, I mean, there's days where you wonder how you're going to get out of bed, let alone climb on a bike and do a 200-kilometer stage in the Pyrenees. It takes everything out of you, drains you physically, mentally, emotionally. I mean, the toughest grown men in the world, literally in tears, but I think the drama is what makes it beautiful.
Doug, you're here at the Tour de France without the rider who has been your kind of emblematic figure in the last couple of years, Mark Cavendish. He said that he was flying in training. He thinks he should have been picked. Why wasn't he picked?
Well, look, I mean, it is sad that Mark isn't here. He is an icon of this race. It was a team decision from our high-performance team. There was difference of opinions, but when you add that, all of those opinions together and the route that was presented, the team felt we selected the best.
We were the bottom of the World Tour rankings, and so that was a real tough time, tough for our partners, tough for our strategy, but it was absolutely necessary, and because we couldn't continue, on that, in that way.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Philele njani wena?
Philele na. Njani training section?
Be right, besiphume nje for 1 hour, so be short nje ukwelula imilenze.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, good. Yeah, yo nervous ngoku. Banencinga ngayo. 3 weeks in the kodwa yo. 3 weeks, Sunday race 3 weeks. Ngiphelele ke 10 days.
Okay.
Okay, sure. Bye-bye, ingozi. Bye-bye, ngizotsheta late. Bye.
Sure.
Everybody loves the story of the underdog. Everybody loves the story of the person that achieved something that's never been achieved before. And I think that's what sport gives all of us. It's so often about the human story, about that unexpected effort or that unexpected win or that person that's gone truly beyond what anybody thought was humanly possible to achieve the unachievable. That's why we believe so passionately in Doug's vision. The opportunity for something as simple as a cycling team or a cycling race to change the direction of a continent. That's why we love working with Qhubeka, that's why we love working with this team, and it is that ambition that we love.
And winner of the UCI gold medal, Samuel Batista!
It's a privilege to have our team being partnered with NTT, who obviously hold performance and innovation in high regard. And we look forward to representing NTT Pro Cycling and NTT as an organization as we embark on a very interesting 2020 cycling season.
He actually hasn't signed his contract yet.
And then a dream come true world champion from the under-23 category from our development team, Samuel Batista.
Still a very beautiful jersey. So I'm doing my work, ride the bike, but also you're riding for Qhubeka and not only for yourself.
We are building on something has been growing for years now.
Rollout time, stage 5 of the Santos Tour Down Under.
Building on what was, and then beginning of building something that's going to be great. You can call it new beginning, or whatever you want to call it, it really doesn't matter.
I want to see you all move towards the front. Come on. Now you move forward.
be a special one. This is Nizzolo, I think, coming up towards the line, and this will be a big victory if it is, because he gets to the line, and that is a huge result for Team NTT.
That is Nizzolo. He led across from Consoni.
Right out. The Italian is charging through. Nizzolo gets the win.
Welcome to stage one of the inaugural virtual Tour de France on Zwift.
This is Mikey's opportunity into the last kilometre. The breakaway burrito deployed. NTT this week at the Zwift Tour for All have been reborn.
What Doug has been building up for over years, I mean, it has been an African team, and especially a South African team. We're not going to take that away because I think that's very important. There's a lot of culture in this, and we're gonna keep this and protect this. Doug is a huge heart for cycling, and I think when he started this project for many years ago, I'm pretty sure he didn't realize what and where it would end.
Knowing Doug, as we kind of continue to reach those goals and ambitions that he sets himself, he'll just kind of create the next one. He's not the type of guy that's going to sort of say, okay, tick the box, I've done it.
Taking a team to the Tour de France, an African team to the Tour de France, for sure is a milestone, and for sure it's a great achievement. But in many ways, we still like to see African success.
When we started, we wanted to get to the Tour de France. It was a dream just to be on the start line and just to be invited. And now, what is the evolution of that? I mean, it is to stand tall in the greatest race. And it would be amazing to hear, the South African national anthem being played on the Champs-Élysées. But if I could choose between people riding bikes on the dusty streets of Qhubeka or on the paved roads of the Champs-Élysées in Paris, I would absolutely choose the dusty roads of Qhubeka, because then our team, has made an impact and raised awareness and funds to give people hope and opportunity.